She handed me divorce papers with a smile. 27 years, and she needed to find herself. I signed without hesitation. No begging, no drama. She expected me to fall apart. But what happened next? Let's just say she came back expecting an empty house and a broken man. What she found instead made her face go white. Some doors, once closed, don't open again. My name is Benjamin Mitchell. I'm 54 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had my life figured out. I ran a successful construction supply business in Asheville, North Carolina. My father built it from nothing, and I expanded it into 3 counties. Good reputation, solid income, and a house paid off before my 50th birthday. I had what most men would call a comfortable life. My wife, Bridget, and I had been married for 27 years. We had one daughter, Kelsey, who'd moved to Charlotte and started her own marketing firm. Smart kid. Got her mother's looks and, thankfully, my work ethic. For years, everything seemed fine. Not perfect, but fine. We had our routines. Friday night dinners, Saturday morning farmer's market, Sunday pancakes. Normal stuff. Then about 2 years ago, Bridget started changing. She joined a book club that only read books about women reclaiming their power. She started going to weekend retreats in the mountains, coming back with new vocabulary like authentic self and energetic boundaries. She hired an interior designer named Dominic Reed to redo the living room, then the kitchen, then the whole first floor. Said the house felt stagnant and needed fresh vision. I didn't think much of it. Let her have her hobbies, right? I was busy with the business, and she seemed happy enough. Or at least, I thought she did. Then came that Tuesday in March. I remember because it was raining, one of those cold, miserable rains that makes you want to stay inside with coffee and a book. I came home around 6, boots muddy from site inspection, and found Bridget sitting at the kitchen table. There was a manila envelope next to the salt shaker. "We need to talk," Bridget said. Her voice was calm, almost rehearsed. I set my keys down slowly. "All right." She slid the envelope toward me. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. About us. About me. About what I want from the rest of my life." I opened the envelope. Divorce papers. The words blurred together, but I caught the essentials. Irreconcilable differences. Division of assets. She'd already signed her name at the bottom in that perfect cursive she'd always been proud of. "I need space, Ben," Bridget continued. "I need to find myself. Figure out who I am outside of being your wife." I looked up at her. 27 years, and it came down to this. A stack of papers and a speech that sounded like it came from one of her self-help books. "Okay," I said. She blinked. "Okay, that's it." I picked up a pen from the counter and signed my name. Didn't hesitate. Didn't argue. If she wanted out, I wasn't going to beg her to stay. "You've already made up your mind, Bridget," I replied. "I'm not going to fight you." Bridget left the next morning with 2 suitcases and her laptop. She didn't take much, just clothes and personal items. Said she was heading to a friend's place in Charleston while she figured things out. I watched from the kitchen window as she loaded her silver Lexus, the one I'd bought her for our 25th anniversary. She drove away without looking back. The house felt different immediately. Not empty, exactly, but lighter. Like someone had opened windows I didn't know were closed. I spent that first day walking through the rooms, taking inventory. 27 years of marriage leaves a lot of debris. Her collection of decorative pillows that no one was allowed to actually use. The candles that cost $40 each and smelled like sage and intention, whatever that meant. The stack of self-help books on her nightstand, all with titles about awakening and transformation. I started boxing things up methodically, not out of anger, just practicality. She said she needed space, so I gave her exactly that. Everything that was clearly hers went into labeled boxes and got stacked neatly in the garage. Climate-controlled, organized, ready for pickup whenever she got around to it. The second thing I did was call a locksmith. Some people might think that's cold, but I saw it differently. She'd chosen to leave. That meant she didn't live here anymore. Simple as that. The house belonged to the Mitchell Family Trust anyway, something my father had set up back in the 90s before I even met Bridget. She'd never paid much attention to the legal details. Always said the paperwork was boring. Now those boring details mattered. By the end of the week, I moved myself into the guest house out back. My father had built it after his first heart attack, said he needed a quiet place to escape when the world got too loud. It was small but comfortable, with its own entrance, kitchen, and bathroom. Independent utilities, separate from the main house. Most people didn't even know it existed, tucked behind the hedge line like it was. I didn't tell Bridget about the move. Didn't see the point. She sent a text on day 3 asking if I was handling things okay. I replied that I was fine. She sent back a thumbs up emoji and nothing else. The main house sat empty for exactly 5 days. Then I got a text from someone I hadn't heard from in months. Brooke Palmer, Bridget's younger half-sister. We'd always gotten along well enough at family gatherings, but Bridget kept her at arm's length. Said Brooke was sweet but unfocused and would probably end up living in a van somewhere. Brooke's message was simple. Hey Ben, heard about the split. You doing all right? I stare at my phone for a moment, then type back. Yeah, I'm good. Better than expected, actually. Her response came quickly. Want to grab coffee sometime? No pressure, just checking in. We met 2 days later at a place downtown that served coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Brooke showed up in jeans and a flannel shirt, her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked tired but steady, like someone who'd learned to carry weight without complaining about it. You look different, Brooke said, sliding into the booth across from me. Different how? I asked. Calmer, she replied. Like you've been holding your breath for years and finally let it out. I thought about that. Yeah, that's about right. After that first coffee meeting, Brooke and I started talking more regularly. Nothing romantic, just two people who'd both been on the receiving end of Bridget's dismissive attitude. Brooke had stories I'd never heard, about growing up in Bridget's shadow, always being compared and found wanting. Their mother had remarried when Brooke was 8, and Bridget had never let her forget she was the second family. About 2 weeks after Bridget left, Brooke showed up at the house unannounced. She was driving a beat-up Honda with a trunk full of cleaning supplies and painting equipment. What's all this? I asked, meeting her in the driveway. You said the main house needs work before you can think about selling it or renting it out, Brooke replied, pulling out a bucket of paint rollers. I figured I'd help. I've got the week off from the clinic anyway. Brooke worked as a physical therapy assistant, something Bridget had always downplayed as just helping people stretch. But watching her that day, I saw someone who knew how to work. She didn't complain, didn't need constant direction, just rolled up her sleeves and got to it. We started in the living room, pulling down Bridget's expensive curtains that blocked most of the natural light. Underneath, the windows were filthy, years of grime nobody had bothered to clean because the curtains hid it. She always cared more about how things looked than how they actually were, Brooke said, scrubbing at the glass. Yeah, I agreed, pulling down another curtain rod. I'm starting to see that. We worked through the afternoon, making more progress than I'd managed alone in 2 weeks. Brooke had this way of making the work feel lighter, cracking jokes about Bridget's taste in furniture and suggesting we burn the decorative pillows for warmth. By evening, we'd cleared out the living room completely and given it a fresh coat of neutral paint. The space looked bigger, brighter, like it could finally breathe. You should stay, I said as we cleaned up. The spare room's empty, and it's getting late. Save you the drive back to Columbia. Brooke hesitated. You sure? I don't want to impose. You just spent 8 hours helping me reclaim my house, I replied. That's not imposing. That's friendship. She smiled. All right, but I'm making breakfast tomorrow, and we're tackling that disaster of a kitchen. Over the next few days, Brooke kept coming back. She'd show up in the morning with coffee and plans for which room we'd renovate next. The kitchen, the hallway, the main bedroom. Each space got stripped of Bridget's influence and rebuilt into something functional and honest. People in town started noticing. The mailman asked if I had family visiting. The neighbor across the street waved and called out that the place was looking good. I didn't explain, just said I was making some changes. 3 weeks in, Brooke mentioned she was between apartments. Her lease was ending, and she hadn't found anything affordable yet in Columbia. Stay here, I said. It wasn't a question, just an obvious solution. Guest rooms sitting empty, and you've put more work into this place than anyone. Seems fair. Brooke looked at me carefully. Ben, are you sure? What about Bridget? What about her? I asked. She left. This isn't her house anymore. Never really was. Brooke moved in the following weekend with just 2 suitcases and a box of books. No drama, no grand statements, just quiet occupation of a space that needed someone who appreciated it. Having Brooke in the house changed everything. Not in some dramatic, earth-shattering way, but in small, steady improvements that added up. She woke up early and made real coffee, not the fancy espresso nonsense Bridget used to insist on. She cooked actual meals instead of photographing salads. She laughed at my jokes and didn't treat every conversation like a performance. We fell into an easy routine. Mornings, we'd have coffee on the back porch and plan the day's projects. Brooke would head to work at the clinic, and I'd handle business at the warehouse. Evenings, we'd work on the house together, stripping away years of Bridget's decorating choices and replacing them with something simpler and more honest. The living room got new furniture, comfortable stuff you could actually sit on. The kitchen lost its pretentious copper accents and gained functional storage. The main bedroom, which I still hadn't moved back into, got completely repainted and refurnished. It stopped being Bridget's shrine and became just a room. Brooke had her own life and her own space, but there was something comfortable about having another person around, someone who didn't need me to be anything other than what I was. She'd work on her sketches in the evenings while I read, and we'd exist in the same space without it being heavy or complicated. My daughter Kelsey called one evening while Brooke and I were painting the hallway. "Dad, I heard Aunt Brooke's staying with you," Kelsey said. There was no judgment in her tone, just curiosity. "Yeah, she's helping fix up the house," I replied. "Place needed work." "How are you doing?" "Really?" Kelsey asked. "Better than I expected," I admitted. "Your mom made her choice, and I'm making mine. No point dwelling on what's done." "Good," Kelsey said firmly. "You deserve better than someone who treats you like an accessory. I love Mom, but she's been selfish for years. I'm glad you're not sitting around waiting for her to come back." After we hung up, Brooke looked over from where she was edging the trim. "Kelsey okay with me being here?" she asked. "More than okay," I said. "She's glad I'm not alone." Brooke nodded, returning to her work. "For what it's worth, Ben, I'm glad too. This place is starting to feel like a home instead of a museum." She was right. The house was transforming, and so was I. The weight I'd been carrying for years, trying to make Bridget happy, trying to be enough, had lifted. I wasn't trying to please anyone anymore. I was just living, and it felt good. By the end of the month, Brooke had completely settled in. Her art supplies occupied one corner of the guest room. Her running shoes sat by the back door. Her laughter filled spaces that had been silent for too long. The house wasn't empty anymore. It was alive. Life had settled into something resembling normal when I discovered the first discrepancy. I was going through old bank statements, preparing documents for the divorce attorney, when I noticed a pattern. Regular transfers from our joint account to an account I didn't recognize. 500 here, 1,000 there, sometimes more. Over the past 18 months, nearly $40,000 had disappeared. I called the bank. The account belonged to someone named Dominic Reed, the interior designer. Bridget's interior designer. I sat at my desk in the guest house, staring at the statements spread across the table. $40,000. Money I'd earned, money we'd saved together, funneled to another man while she smiled at me over breakfast and talked about finding herself. I called my attorney, Lawrence Griffith, a guy I'd known since high school. He whistled low when I explained what I'd found. "Ben, this changes things," Lawrence said. "We can use this in the settlement. Dissipation of marital assets. She can't just drain accounts and walk away clean." "I don't want to fight," I replied. "I just want what's mine protected." "Then we protect it," Lawrence confirmed. "I'll file the paperwork today. She'll have to account for every dollar." That evening, I showed Brooke the statements. She studied them carefully, her jaw tightening. "I'm not surprised," Brooke said finally. Bridget always had someone on the side. Someone who made her feel special, told her what she wanted to hear. "You knew?" I asked. "I suspected," Brooke admitted, "but it wasn't my place to say anything. You two were married, and I was just the ignored little sister. Who would have believed me?" She had a point. I wouldn't have believed her. I'd been too busy trying to keep Bridget happy, too blind to see what was right in front of me. "There's something else," Brooke continued hesitantly. "I ran into Kelsey last week. She told me she'd known about Mom's affair for over a year. She saw them together at a restaurant in Charlotte and confronted Bridget. Your wife, Bridget told her to keep quiet, said it was complicated and that you wouldn't understand." The betrayal cut deeper than I expected. Not just Bridget's affair, but Kelsey keeping it secret. My own daughter, protecting her mother's lies. She felt terrible about it, Brooke added quickly. Said she didn't know how to tell you without destroying everything. She was trying to protect you. I understood that. Didn't make it hurt less, but I understood. The next day, I called Kelsey. She answered on the second ring, her voice immediately defensive. Dad, I'm sorry. I should have told you, Kelsey said before I could speak. Yeah, you should have, I replied. But I get why you didn't. You were caught in the middle. I hated keeping it from you, Kelsey continued, her voice breaking slightly. But Mom said if I told you, it would ruin everything. She said she'd end it, that it was just a phase. It wasn't a phase, Kelsey, I said quietly. It was a choice, one she made repeatedly. We talked for an hour. Kelsey cried, apologized, explained how torn she'd felt. I didn't blame her. She'd been put in an impossible position by her mother, and she'd done what she thought was best. That's all any of us can do. When I hung up, Brooke handed me a cup of coffee and sat down across from me at the kitchen table. You all right? Brooke asked. I will be, I said. Just processing. For what it's worth, Brooke said carefully, you're handling this better than most men would. You're not lashing out or falling apart. That takes strength. I wasn't sure about strength. I just knew that staying angry wouldn't change anything. Bridget had made her choices, stolen money, lied to our daughter, and walked away like none of it mattered. All I could control was how I responded, and I chose not to let it destroy me. Bridget showed up unannounced on a Saturday morning. I was in the workshop behind the guest house, building shelf for Brooke's art supplies, when I heard her car in the driveway. I set down my drill and walked around front, wiping sawdust off my hands. She stepped out of her Lexus, wearing expensive yoga clothes and oversized sunglasses. She looked thinner, more angular, like she'd been subsisting on green juice and validation. Ben, we need to talk, Bridget announced, pulling off her sunglasses. About what? I asked, staying where I was. About the house. About our things. About moving forward properly, Bridget explained, her tone suggesting she'd rehearsed this. Everything's been handled, I replied. Your belongings are boxed in the garage. Your attorney has all the documents. Nothing left to discuss. She bristled at that. I want to see the house. Make sure you haven't damaged anything. The house is fine, I said evenly. Better than fine, actually. Before she could respond, the front door opened. Brooke stepped out wearing paint-splattered jeans and one of my old work shirts, her hair tied back with a bandana. She was carrying a paintbrush and looked completely at home. Bridget froze. Her face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, recognition, disbelief, then something that looked like panic. What is she doing here? Bridget demanded, her voice rising. Brooke lives here now, I said simply. She's been helping fix up the place. Lives here, Bridget repeated, her voice climbing higher. She's living in my house. It's not your house, Bridget, I corrected. It never was. The house belongs to the Mitchell Family Trust. Always has. Bridget's panic transformed into rage. You moved my sister into my home the second I left. That's disgusting, Ben. That's manipulative and disgusting. Half-sister, Brooke corrected calmly, leaning against the doorframe. And you left, Bridget. You dropped divorce papers and left to find yourself. Remember? Ben didn't chase you. He just stopped waiting. Bridget's face flushed. You always wanted what I had. Even when we were kids, you were always jealous, always trying to take my place. I don't want your place, Brooke replied, her voice steady. I'm just helping someone who deserves better than what you gave him. Bridget turned back to me, her expression desperate now. Ben, please. We can work this out. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. Just tell her to leave. I looked at her carefully. This woman I'd spent 27 years with, who'd drained our accounts to fund an affair, who'd lied to our daughter, who'd left without a backward glance. And now she was panicking because someone else had filled the space she'd abandoned. No, I said. You made your choice. You wanted space, and I gave it to you. All of it. You're going to regret this, Bridget hissed, backing toward her car. Both of you will regret this. I don't think so, I replied. But you might want to talk to your attorney about those bank transfers. We found them all. Her face went pale. She opened her mouth, closed it, then got in her car without another word. The tires spun gravel as she reversed out of the driveway and disappeared down the street. Brooke walked over and stood beside me, both of us watching the dust settle. That went well, Brooke said dryly. I laughed despite myself. Yeah, real smooth. She's going to make trouble, Brooke observed. Probably, I agreed. But we've got the truth on our side. That counts for something. Bridget's attorney filed motions within 48 hours of her visit. She wanted the house, half the business assets, and alimony despite being the one who left. Her lawyer painted me as vindictive and cruel for replacing her so quickly with her own sister. Lawrence called me that Tuesday morning, sounding almost amused. Ben, she's claiming you violated the sanctity of the marriage by moving Brooke in immediately after she left, Lawrence explained. Her attorney is trying to paint this as adultery. Adultery? I repeated. She's the one who drained 40 grand to fund an affair with her designer. Exactly, Lawrence agreed. Which is why this won't work. We've got bank records, timestamps, witness statement from the designer's ex-wife, who confirmed the affair started 2 years ago. Bridget doesn't have a leg to stand on. The court date arrived 3 weeks later. I wore a suit, sat quietly, and let Lawrence handle the talking. Bridget showed up in all black, playing the wounded victim. Her attorney argued that I'd emotionally abandoned her, that I'd planned to replace her with Brooke all along, that the house should be hers as compensation for years of emotional neglect. Then Lawrence presented the evidence. Bank statements showing systematic transfers to Dominic Reed. Text messages Kelsey had provided showing Bridget admitting to the affair. Testimony from neighbors who'd seen Dominic's car in our driveway on days I was at work. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Patricia Holloway, reviewed everything carefully. Then she looked over her glasses at Bridget. Mrs. Mitchell, you depleted marital assets to fund an extramarital affair, then abandoned the marriage claiming you needed space. Judge Holloway said flatly. And now you're demanding the family home and support from the man you betrayed. Is that accurate? Bridget's attorney started to speak, but the judge raised her hand. The home belongs to a family trust established before your marriage. Judge Holloway continued. You have no legal claim to it. Furthermore, the dissipation of assets will be accounted for in the final settlement. You'll be responsible for repaying half of what you transferred, roughly $20,000. Bridget's face went pale. Her attorney whispered urgently to her, but she just sat there frozen. As for alimony, the judge added, given that you voluntarily left the marriage and depleted marital assets, I see no basis for support. Divorce granted. Division of remaining assets to be calculated minus the amount Mrs. Mitchell must repay. We're done here. Walking out of that courthouse felt like stepping into sunlight after years in a cave. Brooke was waiting outside, having taken a day off to be there. How'd it go? Brooke asked. We won. I said simply, everything. 2 weeks after the court ruling, Brooke started feeling sick. At first, we thought it was stress from the legal battle, or maybe just a stomach bug. But when it didn't improve after a week, I insisted she see a doctor. She came back from the appointment looking stunned. Ben, I'm pregnant, Brooke said, sitting down heavily at the kitchen table. I stared at her. Pregnant. About 6 weeks, she confirmed, her hands shaking slightly. I didn't even think it was possible. I've always had irregular cycles, and we were careful. Mostly. We had gotten closer over the past months, finding comfort in each other after everything with Bridget. It hadn't been planned or dramatic, just two people healing together who found something unexpected. What do you want to do? I asked, sitting across from her. I want to keep it, Brooke said immediately. But I understand if this is too much, too fast. I can move out, handle this on my own. No, I said firmly. You're not handling this alone. If we're doing this, we're doing it together. Brooke's eyes filled with tears. Ben, are you sure? This is going to complicate everything. Everything's already complicated, I replied. This just makes it more interesting. We told Kelsey first. She came over that weekend, and we sat her down in the living room. I expected shock, maybe disapproval. Instead, she started laughing. Of course you're pregnant, Aunt Brooke, Kelsey said, shaking her head. Mom's going to lose her mind. That's not why we're doing this, I said quickly. I know, Dad, Kelsey replied, still grinning. But it's going to drive her absolutely insane, and honestly, she deserves it. You two deserve to be happy. If this makes you happy, then I'm happy for you. News traveled fast in a small town. Within days, everyone knew. The reactions were mixed. Some people thought it was too soon, too messy. Others figured we were both adults making our own choices. I didn't much care what people thought. Bridget heard about it within the week. She called me from an unknown number, screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You got her pregnant? My sister? You're disgusting, Ben. You planned this whole thing, Bridget yelled. I didn't plan anything, Bridget, I replied calmly. Life just happened. You know, the thing you left to go find. This is revenge, she insisted. No, I said. Revenge would require me to still care about hurting you. This is just me moving forward. She hung up. I blocked the number. 3 months into Brooke's pregnancy, a man I'd never met showed up at the house. He was in his early 60s, weathered face, nervous energy. He introduced himself as Raymond Palmer, Brooke's biological father. I heard my daughter's living here, Raymond said, standing awkwardly on the porch. Haven't seen her in 15 years. Thought maybe it was time to reconnect. Brooke came to the door, her face going pale when she saw him. What are you doing here? Brooke asked, her voice tight. Brooke, honey, I know I haven't been around, Raymond started, his tone too friendly. But family's important. Heard you're expecting. I want to be part of that. Make things right. You want money, Brooke said flatly. That's what this is about. Raymond's expression shifted, the friendliness slipping. I'm in a tough spot. Just need a little help getting back on my feet. 10,000 would set me straight. No, Brooke said simply. I'm your father, Raymond insisted, his voice rising. You owe me. I stepped forward, positioning myself between them. She doesn't owe you anything. You need to leave. Raymond's eyes narrowed. And who are you? The new sugar daddy. You knocked up my daughter, and now you think you can shut me out? I think you abandoned her when she was 17, I replied calmly. And now you show up looking for a handout. That's not family. That's opportunism. Raymond took a step closer, trying to intimidate me. I didn't move. You've got one chance to leave on your own, I said quietly. After that, I called the sheriff. Your choice. Something in my tone made him reconsider. He backed off, muttering about family loyalty and regret, then got in his truck and drove away. Brooke was shaking. I guided her inside and made her sit down. He's been doing this my whole life, Brooke said, her voice breaking. Shows up when he needs something, disappears when I need him. I thought I was done with it. You were done with it, I said firmly. He's not getting near you or our child. I'll make sure of that. 2 days later, Raymond tried again, this time showing up at Brooke's work. Security escorted him out, and I filed a restraining order that afternoon. The judge granted it immediately after hearing Brooke's history with him. Meanwhile, Bridget had been making noise through mutual friends, claiming I'd stolen her sister and destroyed her life. Most people ignored her, but she managed to get to Kelsey's grandmother, my ex-mother-in-law, who called demanding answers. You got Brooke pregnant to hurt my daughter, she accused. No, I got Brooke pregnant because we're in a relationship and life happened, I replied. Bridget made her choices. I'm making mine. She hung up on me. I didn't care. The people who mattered understood what was really happening. Everyone else could believe whatever they wanted. 8 months after Bridget left, Brooke gave birth to a healthy baby boy. We named him David, after my father. Holding him in the hospital, watching Brooke exhausted but smiling, I realized something profound. This wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was better than anything I could have imagined. Kelsey was at the hospital within hours, tears streaming down her face as she held her baby brother. He's perfect, Dad, Kelsey said. You deserve this. You deserve to be happy. Bridget heard about the birth through her mother. She sent one text. Hope you're happy with your replacement family. I deleted it without responding. She was part of my past, not my future. The divorce settlement finalized 2 weeks later. Bridget got half of our liquid assets, minus the $20,000 she owed for the money she'd stolen. She kept her car and her personal belongings. I kept the house, the business, and my peace of mind. The trust structure my father had established protected everything that mattered. Dominic Reed, her designer lover, had apparently moved on to another wealthy client. Bridget was living in a small apartment in Charleston, posting inspirational quotes about resilience and starting over. I didn't follow her social media, but Kelsey kept me updated. Mom's telling people she left an abusive situation, Kelsey reported during one visit. That you controlled her financially and emotionally. Let her tell whatever story she needs to tell, I said, watching David sleep in his bassinet. The truth's in the court records, if anyone cares to look. Brooke and I settled into a routine. She went back to work part-time after maternity leave, and I adjusted my schedule to help with David. The house that had once been a showcase for Bridget's ego became a real home, filled with baby toys and laughter and the comfortable chaos of actual living. Raymond tried contacting Brooke once more, 6 months after David was born. A letter arrived requesting money and visitation rights as a grandfather. Brooke's attorney responded with a copy of the restraining order and a cease and desist. We never heard from him again. 15 months after Bridget dropped those divorce papers on my kitchen table, I was sitting on the back porch with Brooke, watching David take his first wobbly steps across the grass. Kelsey was there too, recording on her phone and cheering him on. You know what's funny? Brooke said, leaning against my shoulder. Bridget spent all those years trying to find herself, and she still has no idea who she is. But you knew all along. You just needed her gone to remember. She was right. The man I've been with Bridget, constantly trying to be enough, constantly adjusting to her changing demands, that wasn't really me. That was survival. This, sitting here with people who valued me for who I actually was, this was living. David stumbled and sat down hard in the grass. Instead of crying, he laughed and got back up, determined to keep trying. I smiled, watching him. Starting over wasn't about erasing the past. It was about building something better from what remained. And looking at my son, my daughter, and Brooke beside me, I knew we'd built something solid, something real, something worth keeping.